Well, let's get talking now. Skyrocketing petrol subsidy payments, which remains a drain on the economy, as well as foreign exchange volatility, has continued to cause a strain on government's revenue generation strategy, leading to seemingly unbridled borrowing and rising debt service costs, which exceeded the country's revenue by as much as 310 billion naira in the first quarter of 2022, and still continues to rise. To compound its economic challenges, Nigeria's main source of FX revenue, which is crude oil, has become a source of concern as the crisis in the sector continues to overwhelm the players. Despite the marginal increase in crude oil production for the month of October, the country still lags behind countries like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, Angola, and Algeria on the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries crude oil list. This development has been attributed to the massive oil theft, pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta region, depleting government's revenue, as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has not been able to contribute a kobo to the Federation accounts this year. Well, let's talk about this issue and understand what it means. And I'm being joined live. He is a chartered accountant and he's also an oil and gas analyst and expert, Mr. Wade Ahime. Thank you so much. And it's the first time on the show. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Tolu. It's a pleasure having to be here.
Yes, I want to start with going by market trends. We see NNPC getting access to Forex to bring in products. What do you think about having a level playing ground for marketers to run this business?
So let me start by saying, I think it was March last year when the federal government said, okay, it was going to start its regulation process.
Yes.
And you remember then oil prices across the world had gone down. And petrol prices all of a sudden dropped from, I think, 140 to 125.
Yes.
And that was what everybody was expecting. So they had met with the marketers and we were saying, okay, how do we make those arrangements and put those things into proper perspective? However, this is a year and a half down the line. Nothing has happened. NNPC is still the sole importer of petrol. Foreign exchange is not available. Like you've also mentioned, FAC, they haven't contributed a cent to the FAC this year. And that's because of massive oil theft, in quote. So when you consider all these things and then you say you want to a level playing field, then it's not going to happen. So what you expect to happen to ensure that the inefficiencies within the system are properly managed is to let everybody come into the system, have access to the official exchange rate, and then you start to see that more people would be willing to buy and more people will be willing to source FX and bring in products and ensure they manage the inefficiencies within the system. So let me give a typical example. When you look at the cost of diesel today, it's almost 6 times the cost of petrol. Yes. And it is also because of the fact that nobody selling diesel or ATK can access the official market. So if I have to buy, when you consider the fact that the landing cost for NNPC is between 280 and 350 naira at any particular time, so you can imagine when I have to buy FX from the parallel market at almost 72% differential. And all those things translate into how the pricing will come out. And that's why you saw diesel all of a sudden, when rates were almost at par, skyrocketed by 2, 3, 4 times. Today, diesel is 850. And at the point in time, at the beginning of this year, you could get diesel between 200. 203, yes. 300 came at the latter part.
Yes,
when
that's true.
That's when, when the first devaluation of the naira came into place, when naira went from 360 to about 409. And these are the things that we're talking about. So if an NPC continues to bring it in and you don't have enough crude that you're selling to bring in the foreign exchange, how do you access that? They're not even contributing to FAC. So our foreign exchange reserves are continually dwindling. And that's why the CBN is always trying to arrange and rearrange what is happening. The second part of it will be this. Because of the fact that, and there's a policy to this, maritime fees and all should be paid in naira.
Yes, I'm going there because I'm worried. Why do Wawuni Masa and the likes of NPA charge in FX? We don't spend dollars in Nigeria.
But NPA will tell you that most of their fees and most of their all their are dollarized. But the fact of it is this. Let me just give a typical example. A freight cost, that's to hire vessels, a 20 metric ton, 20,000 metric ton vessel should cost on the average, if you use the normal CBN rate, at 220 million, but it's costing about 381 million. That's just to move it from offshore Lagos to bring it into a depot so that they can go out into the public. So look at that cost differential. We're talking about 161 million in differential cost. And then you expect everybody to still pay 170, 75 naira for fuel. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. And when you look at all the numbers and the things that, let me just give you a typical example. So let's look at, in comparison to the subsidy payments, in comparison to the budgets between 2019, I'll leave 2020 out because it was the pandemic year. In terms of subsidy to the revenue, it was 23% of our revenue, expected revenue in 2019. It was 17% to expected cost, expenditure. In 2021, it rose to 32% of our revenue earnings, and it was 18% of our expenditure. In 2022, it's estimated to be 46% of the revenue that we're going to generate and 24.69%. And in 2023, based on the budget figures that have been brought out, it's going to be shooting at about 68% of our revenue. So these are things that we're talking about.
The whole budget
of the revenue.
Yes.
Because we're already financing the deficit by debt. And a huge part of it, and it's 32% of the expenditure. So these are the realities that we face on ground. Like the president has said, next year they will take out subsidy, but my own belief is going to come into the next administration. But the earlier we do that and let everybody have access. And the beauty of this is because some of the Nigerian businesses are already also in the upstream space where they're able to receive foreign currency. Then you, like it used to happen in foreign exchange markets, the Mobiles, the Chevrons pumped money into the economy and it stabilized the Naira. Then we'll start to go back to those kind of things. And these are the realities that we need to face.
Because I want to ask this, when we talk about subsidy issues, some will say, well, taking out subsidy might not be the problem. How sincere will government be? What can we channel these funds to? Can you talk about the impact we could make with these funds if they are rightly channeled, other than paying it all on subsidy?
Okay, so let's give a typical example. The expectation for Nigeria today in terms of education on a yearly basis should be about 1.4 trillion or 1.14 trillion to be spent on education. Now, in 2019, we paid 1.6 trillion in subsidy. You can imagine if you had just put that in education, what would have happened? And then you consistently put it into it. You and I went to school. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you went to a public school in...
Yes.
I'm a graduate of a public school.
Yes.
And when I say public, I'm not just talking about primary, secondary. I'm also talking about tertiary institutions. Today, we can't do that. We're scared to send our kids to public schools. Yeah. And these are the things that we're talking about. Education has taken a background. Let's look at community health, public health. Expectation is about 1.4 trillion every year being spent on health. But we're not doing these things. The numbers are abysmal. They've been abysmal over time. And so you can imagine that even for the smallest ailment, I remember growing up in this Lagos, health centers were everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
I once had an accident and they took me to the Randall Health Center, and that's where I was treated, and I came out and here I am today. But today I can't go to a health center except maybe I have malaria. and these are the realities. And when you look at these numbers, it's just amazing. And another thing that I think we should start looking at channeling these funds into, it's the energy transition program.
Very important.
Very, very important. I know the vice president was in the States a couple of months ago, and he was talking about Nigeria alone, we're not talking about Africa, needs about $1.9 trillion over the next 38 years, which is about $50 billion a year. Now, let's look at these numbers. If you take the subsidy that is going to be paid in 2023, the expectation of about 6.7 trillion, it comes to about $15.6 billion. If you take that money and just put it into the energy transition program, that's about a third of the amount that you require. And what do you think will happen to private investors? Of course, they will be scrambling to become part of these things. And just set out the right policies. But we can't go cap in hand, borrowing, and then not doing the right things that we're supposed to do. And then telling those who have borrowed us money that they should cancel our debt. It just won't work.
Who does that? But back to the issue of subsidy, because the understanding that I also have in the industry is that many believe that there is smuggling ongoing, movement of PMS outside our country. We call ourselves Big Brother Africa. But I don't know, are we really the big brothers?
We're the giants of Africa.
Giants of Africa. And we keep sending our products with subsidies being paid on outside the country. And many will say Nigerian fuel is cheaper. So even in the African countries, they want to buy Nigerian fuel. Because I'm thinking that if that is also checked, talking about our level of consumption and all of that, can it help address anything?
Yes, it will. But so let me shock you with the numbers. In 2015, the average daily consumption was between 35 million. And that's what they did. That's what the statistics that was brought out was about 35, 36 million.
Again.
Today, it's twice that amount on a daily basis. Have we bought more cars? I don't think so.
MBS has not given us any updates to that.
Have we bought more generators? Maybe. But where people are turning to alternative source of power, solar, are you with me? Are they really? You go to many of the salons and what you see today is alternative source of power. Because what I need is a fan and the clipper. And for the women, it's just something that can what's it called, ensure that the dryer, it can carry it. So are we buying more cars? I don't think so. Are we buying more equipment that require petrol? I don't think so. But all of a sudden, we're doing 72, 74 million. As at April this year, we're doing 74 million daily. Where is it going to? And these are the things that we're talking about. So we need to not just take out subsidy, because what I do believe is if you take out the subsidy and those who want to invest in this sector put those monies inside, they would ensure that their products come out well. They will make the money in Nigeria. You have the population in Nigeria. You will sell it at the right price. And of course, this business is a volumes business. The margins are so tiny.
Exactly. It's just the volume.
It's just the volume. So the more you can turn over, the better. So I won't blame anybody who says, I first won't get the subsidy as I went due. I have loans that I need to pay. Banks are sitting on top of my head. And then I still can't make the kind of money I need to make. So yes, there's smuggling. Take out subsidy. Petrol prices, I can't guarantee because it can swing up and down. But of course, initially Nigerians are going to bear a lot of it. But we can start holding our leaders accountable because we can see how much money is going, just from what they even tell us, we can see how much money is going to be lost to go into places like power, like security, like energy transition, like education, like health. You can imagine 6.7 trillion just going back into these three things equally. Education and health will get their fair dose, and not talk about security, which will get about 50% of that money. And then you can provide the right equipment for the security.
Before we wrap up this discussion, I'm thinking along fixed removal. Some have suggested that, because I'm looking at the impact of taking subsidy out, just outrightly like that. How much are we going to buy for per liter? That worries me. I don't know if you think that could also work. Is it too late for us?
I think it is too late. Even the marketers have been clamoring for phased removal, which was what the policy in March 2021 was looking at.
Okay.
And it stopped abruptly. So how much are we going to pay? Currently, like I said, the landing cost comes to about between maybe 280 and 360 naira. So if you add all the other things to it, and then rather than dollarize the first and foremost, and all this is inclusive of the maritime charges that we pay. So if we start to pay that in naira, at least it means that we earn naira, and that's what you're paying. So it will drastically reduce that. So I don't know the numbers off my head, but I don't think it will be more than 400 naira, which will be like 50% of what diesel is.
What about issues around crude oil theft? We've seen a lot of series of discoveries around that. Do you think technology can help play any role in addressing this?
Yes, it will, and it should. All over the world, what I know, and based on my own experience of even having to manage a business that is in that area, when you bring in technology, it tells you a lot of things. A number of things are shown to you. So I don't need to be there or have policemen running every day. Pressure loss, valve shots. These are all things that are used all over the world. Where those things fail is because human error has refused to detect it, or poor quality of product and you don't know how bad it is, and yes, the pressure is still high, but it can burst at a sudden. But yes, technology can, and it should, and I think we should embrace technology in the long run.
Well, it's an interesting conversation, I must tell you, because I'll wrap up this way. Let's have an outlook for the sector despite all of these challenges. What are you thinking about Nigeria's oil and gas space moving on? We are getting into an election year.
What am I thinking?
Yes.
So for me, it's
production,
once we are able to curb all the security and theft issues, production will hit its. We should be rolling in money today. I remember in 1991 during the Gulf War, in a space of 6 months, $12.1 million came into Nigeria's coffers as extra funds. Today, we're begging and we're still handing, cap in hand, asking people to give us monies to build infrastructure. Security should be improved. Generally, security across the country is nothing to write home about. Technology should be faced in, and there are a lot of foreign partners who are moving out, and this gives Nigerians the opportunity to actually get partnerships, collaborations, which is one thing that we're shying away from. More and more in the energy space should start more and more collaborations with the fintechs and the growth of fintech in Nigeria. These are huge opportunities to collaborate towards ensuring that your money, how do they say that thing? Money well spent,
okay,
and the profits are going to wealth. I always hate to use profit, but wealth creation would go across board.
I must thank you so much for your time. Like I said, it's the first time on the show, and we hope to have you join us anytime soon. Mr. Wade,
once you told me that I should come,
chartered accountant and oil and gas expert. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tolu, for having me in the show.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You will.